And again, I'm Tina Carper, and this is our presentation from Early Light Academy on paying for college. And it's never too early or too late to get this information. So hopefully you can share this and able to use it in all kinds of situations. And then just a reminder that this will be recorded and it will also be posted on the website, and so that way it can be shared and watched at a convenient time. I think it's really helpful for students to watch with their parents, but just as long as the information gets out. Okay, I'm just gonna okay, and I will check the chat room at the end of the presentation to make sure all the questions get answered. So I wanted to start with the definition of what is college, because things have changed quite a bit from when I was in high school talking about college. I want you to know that college is 1, 2, 4, or more. This was a campaign, so hopefully it sounds familiar, from our Governor Herbert, where he wanted 66% of all of Utahns to have some kind of college. And so to let people know that 1-year certificate program from a tech college, maybe it's a CNA or welding, that is college. 2-year associate's degree or a technical degree that takes longer than a year, a 4-year bachelor's degree, which is oftentimes what we think about. And then of course there's schooling that you could do more and more to build your career. So that's what college is. So anything that's after high school is considered college, and we are going to talk about paying for all of those things. Okay. So the very first thing when it comes to paying for college is savings. And I know the students usually don't want to hear this because they're, you know, when they think of college, they think of this huge amount and that it's such a challenge. But it was an interesting study by Utah Valley University that the concern that prompted the study was that a lot of students were starting college, but they weren't completing college. And so they wanted to figure out why. What's the correlation? How can we make sure that if they start college, they finish? Number one was, did the students use their own money? And I think that has to do with that commitment. When they're using their own money and they're going to value it and they want to get their money's worth. And so savings is a very valuable part. A specific savings that hopefully people are aware of is a My 529 plan. It is a savings that can only be used for education, and any relative can open up a savings plan. So for example, my husband and I opened up My 529 for each of our grandkids, and then we donate money each year, and then they can use it for when they do college after high school. So that's an example. My 529 in Utah is in the top 5 for best run plans. Now, some people, including my husband, when I propose the ideas, will say, but what if they don't go to college? Well, then the money from my oldest grandson, if he doesn't go to college, I can transfer it to another relative and they can enjoy the fruits. So it can only be used for education, but it can be moved around. And there are some tax benefits when for your state income taxes. Okay, the second part is work, finding the right balance. So this could mean working in high school, but definitely working in college. And going back to that savings if they're working in high school or they're working in the summer. So the Bureau of Labor Statistics found that students who work less than 20 hours per week had a higher average than those that weren't working. But of course, if they work too much, then that benefit decreases and they have lower GPAs. So keep this in mind, because every college that I go to and that does an orientation, they give me the same statistics at their own college. And so if the students can start learning in a small way, if they could get a high school job that's just a few hours just so they get practice balancing that work and responsibility and fun, they're going to be better prepared when they have that freedom and go to the college. Another benefit is, especially if you work on campus, you get to see your professors and other students in different ways, and that just strengthens that relationship. So some nice benefits. Okay, the other way is to pay for college is to take advantage of discounts. So for example, we have AP classes, concurrent enrollment, and we have the IB program, which stands for International Baccalaureate. AP is here at Early Light Academy. We have an AP World Geography class that 9th graders can take. So that is one of many, many topics that AP provides. And when you go on to 10th, 11th, and 12th grade at somewhere else, they're going to have other AP choices. But AP is where the teacher spends the time, and usually it is a full year, and they spend the time teaching the topic, but also teaching the skills on how to read and how to take notes and how to write at the college level. So the class is beneficial no matter what. But the big bonus is if the students choose to pay and take a test in the spring and they score high enough, then they actually can earn the freshman equivalent of that class. But the college part of it is dependent upon that test. The test is around $94. So just heads up on that was the investment. But if you can earn 6 credits, for example, what a deal that is, and the time that you saved. Okay, the second one, concurrent enrollment, are college classes that are taught at the high schools, and they're only $5 per credit. So that is a great deal, but just know that if you signed up for it, you are taking the actual class. It's the same class, same requirements, same tests that you would if you took it on college campus. So you have to make sure you're ready for it. Where in AP, you don't make the commitment until you take the test. And even then, if you don't take the test, then you just don't, or if you don't pass the test, then you just don't get the college credit. There's no black mark, there's no low grade, nothing negative. But all those skills you keep with you. But concurrent enrollment, if you signed up for the class, you will receive a grade, and it will be on your permanent college transcript. You can't say, oh, I don't like that grade, so remove it. It doesn't work that way. A college class is forever on your college transcript. So keep that in mind and make sure that you're ready for the commitment and you make those classes a priority. But to only pay $5 a credit is a great deal. International Baccalaureate is not at very many schools. And when I looked, I didn't see any Jordan school that have this, but it's basically an advanced, so really close to advanced placement in the fact that you are doing more rigor and you're being taught how to be a college student, and your college credit depends on your passing the end of level tests each year as part of the program. But you can earn as much as your general ed or an associate's degree, depending on the school and your participation. So just wanted you to know that it exists in case you are going out of state or another district. Okay, scholarships. That's probably what you were expecting me to talk about, but I will be covering scholarships, but it's a conversation in itself. So in January, we're doing a webinar just on scholarships. And remember, I'm going to check the chat room at the very end of the slides, and so I'll make sure I answer all of your questions. The last thing that I wanted to cover was FAFSA. And I can't believe I forgot to put a screen on what FAFSA stands for, because we just call it FAFSA. But it is free application for student aid. So free application for student aid. The number one word, and really the only word you need to remember, is free. Do not be scammed and fill out a FAFSA and then pay $59 for them to submit it. That just means you probably went on a .com instead of a .gov. So just be aware. So that's why I just want you to remember that it's free and it helps open the gateway to federal assistance. So there are some myths out there. So some of you might already be thinking them. You're like, oh, FAFSA doesn't help me. I'm not going to qualify for anything. I make too much money. Parents have to be citizens in order to apply. Okay, those are the myths. But the reality is, as long as the student is a citizen of the United States or a permanent resident or a citizen of a freely associated states, which is like Micronesia. I have a relative that adopted someone from Yap in Micronesia. So I had to learn this too. Or they meet specific requirements like they're a refugee or a victim of human trafficking. So there's lots of qualifications, and we're just talking about the student. Then the other reality is your offer on what you qualify for is totally contingent upon need. So for example, if you apply for FAFSA and some colleges you're interested in is like Salt Lake Community College and Westminster here in Utah, then you might not qualify for any grants, Pell Grant for Salt Lake Community College, but Westminster, because the demand or the cost is higher, you might meet the requirements for that, all with that one FAFSA application. So it is very important to fill out that FAFSA. Okay, what does it provide? The three things that it may offer, but there's lots of quantity in all those three categories, but the grants. So grant is money you do not have to pay back. So that's why everyone associates with FAFSA, but there's more to FAFSA. But that grant is awesome when you're given money that you don't have to pay back. The money is sent directly to the institution, and then it's used for your educational costs. Their Pell Grant is the common one that people know about, but just know that there are other grants out there that are part of this system. So for example, one is if you are going into occupation that they don't have enough people to do. Well, there's probably grants for that. And that's part of the FAFSA process, is they're going to ask you what you're going to study. So that's an example. Okay, work study is where if you qualify for work study, then you get to apply for jobs that are only for work study eligible students. So now your competition is less in getting the job. But the other cool thing is they pay more than minimum wage, and they are required to work around your school schedule. And they're usually related to your study. So for example, a lot of daycares have work study employees, and that means that the government's paying 75% of your wage through this FAFSA process. And then the daycare, for example, pays 25%, but they have to cater to your work schedule. That's the most important. So that's an example. Now, there is a trick that you need to be aware of, and it's not really a trick. It's just that there's only one sentence on the FAFSA that relates to work study, and it will say, are you interested in work study? Well, students on their own might say, I don't want to study work, and say no, but you always want to say yes to be considered for it. Okay, the last one is loans, and most people cringe and think of loan as a four-letter word, and it is one of those things that can get you into trouble. But if you plan wisely and only borrow what you need for school, the FAFSA is a great way to get a loan because it's going to be a lower interest rate. You don't have to start paying it back until you are done. We hope done means that you have your degree, or if you stop going to school after so many months, you have to start paying it back. So just realize that, and there's a lot more information in loans itself, but just because you're offered one, just because you filled out a FAFSA and you're offered one, doesn't mean you have to accept it. But it's so nice to have that there, because sometimes things happen and you might be surprised and need that to keep your education going. Okay, other FAFSA info. Parents must provide tax information for dependents. And so it's not just based on, it's not a matter of oh, I'm not going to claim Johnny on my taxes so he can be an independent. No, there's specific rules on dependents, and that's part of FAFSA. They'll go through and ask you questions like, have you been in foster care? Are your parents deceased? Those are some of the questions that would make you qualify as an independent. But most 16, 17, and 18-year-olds are dependent. But they will walk you through that. Parents have a part, students have a part. They're separate. And you answer your questions. Now, you can do it sitting next to each other and help each other, but they're separate parts, and you will sign your parts individually, and you sign it online using a PIN. It's a Federal Student Aid ID PIN, and it's one of those numbers that stay with you forever. It is, you can change it if you forget it, but it is a long process and it doesn't go smoothly. So I'm just giving you that advice that if you do sign up for an FSA ID PIN, I would put it somewhere safe. And so parents, you have one, and you might use it for an older child, and then a few years later, another one you're filling out a FAFSA for, that's the same FSA ID. And that's why they keep them separate, because you might have more than one child that you are signing a FAFSA for. A student may fill out the FAFSA as early as October 1st, their senior year. And they do that, and then they use your taxes from the previous year. Which leads us to the next one, because you might say, well, that year, yes, we made lots of money, we had a great year, but something happened. And how do I reflect that on my FAFSA? Well, you can't on the FAFSA, but you can contact the college that you're applying to, so then, and let them know your situation. And the nice thing is there's some gray area where they have that flexibility to grant a grant or make work study offers, that type of thing, based on those extenuating circumstances. So communicate anything that you can't portray on the FAFSA to the college financial aid department, and they can reevaluate you. But also, you need to know that there are two pots of money for the grants part of FAFSA. The one pot of money is there, and it's there even if you go to college and say, oh, I never filled out my FAFSA for this school year, you can fill it out and be reimbursed. So there's that pot of money, and it's just based on a formula that the government's created to try to compare apples to apples. So that's available for quite some time. But the second pot of money has a very short shelf life. And that's where, when you go to your and share your extenuating circumstances, the college can say, you know what, we are going to share this much money with you. But once that pot of money is gone, it's gone until the next year. So make sure that you look at the colleges that you're interested in, what their priority FAFSA or financial aid deadline is, and meet that deadline so you can be evaluated for both pots of money. There are some private scholarships that require you to fill out the FAFSA. So because when you fill out the FAFSA, you get a student aid report, and that student aid report, a private scholarship might want to use and see where you're at. And you might say, oh, well, then that means that they're only going to give the scholarship to people that maybe don't have any money. But that might not be the case. It might be that, oh, well, I know that this range of a student aid report is going to give you a Pell Grant. So I know that I don't need to give you as much, but this other person who's not getting a Pell Grant, they need help. So it actually can be to your advantage to fill that out and demonstrate that, hey, I'm not in this group, and I'm not in the group that has all their money saved for college. I'm in this middle group, and maybe that's who they're looking for. So again, consider filling out that FAFSA. You do have to do it for every school year. Okay, as I mentioned before, if you still have questions, I will go through the chat box, but if you have questions, please contact me. That's my email, that's my phone extension. We can chat, Zoom. If you need to be face-to-face, we can do that in a large room, and we'll socially distance, whatever it takes to make sure your questions get answered. So now I am going to stop sharing that. And okay, great question. So the question is it better to live on campus in a dorm or rent an apartment close by? So I'm going to answer that question first. So there's no better, there's no set answer for the better part of that. Instead, it is dependent upon you on what you need. If it helps you focus, or if you're looking for I really want to get connected and I know if I drive home then I'm not going to think about college, then yes, you should live on campus. So that's going to be one of those preferentials, and planning with parents, because the cost is obviously different on campus housing versus off campus. And which one's the highest? It depends on the college and when they upgraded their dorms. Because if they just built or renovated their dorms, well, then off-campus housing is probably cheaper. And off-campus housing has a range of barely livable to extremely luxurious. So check that out. But when it comes to FAFSA, they will ask you that question. When it comes to financial aid, paying for college, they'll ask you, are you going to stay on campus? Are you going to live at home? On the FAFSA, I would put live on campus. And the reason is because then they will say, well, for you to go to school, it's going to cost you this much. But if you live on campus, or if you live at home, it's going to decrease that amount, which decreases your need. So for the FAFSA, I would put on campus or off campus housing. Then other questions: if I get a scholarship for an out-of-state school, should I take it or go to a college in state? Oh, that's a big depends. So when this situation, or if this situation specifically happens, you can go to your counselor, you can look on web pages, and you can say, okay, this is the cost, this is what's going to happen. And so I'm just going to give you the quick answer and say it just depends. But money is not the only reason that you should decide a college on. It needs to have it needs to meet your needs socially and academically, and have the programs you want, and prepare you for what you want to do as a career in the rest of your life. And so that's what you're looking at. But fortunately, there are lots of schools that can do that with different costs. So it is going to take some research. But I'm going to specifically address this on my scholarship webinar, because there are some things you need to know if you are interested in out-of-state schools that will help. So I will cover that then. Okay, I'll give you guys a chance to put in any other questions. But that scholarship webinar takes 30 minutes also by itself. And so that's why I'll make sure to answer. Okay, well, thank you so much for your time. And make sure you let me know if you have any specific questions. Thank you so much.